Hi everyone, I'm Susie Castillo and I wanted to take a moment to talk to you all and share with you the unfortunate experience that I had with the TSA at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport on April 21st. I was in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, where I was traveling. I was hosting a show. I'm actually a host and an actress. I'm an author and I do motivational speaking, so I unfortunately have to travel by airplane for my job. If I want to pay my bills, I have to travel by airplane, and that's actually what I was doing on April 21st. I was hosting a show in Rio de Janeiro, and on my way back into the country, I had to go through customs, and when I went through the airport security checkpoint, I noticed right away that there were two lines. There was one line where everybody was being ushered through the full body scanner machine, and the other line, people were just going through the regular metal detector. And that line was actually quite longer than the other one, so I just thought, I had enough time. I'm going to wait in this longer line so that I don't have to opt out of the scanner and get a pat down. I waited in the long line, and as I approached the front of that line, about to go through the metal detector, I had a male TSA agent who stopped me and said, excuse me, ma'am, you're going to have to get into this line. And he pointed to the full body scanner line. And I said, sir, I'm actually standing in this other line. I've been waiting here longer because I don't want to go through that machine. And he said, well, that's fine, but you're going to opt out. You're just going to have to get a pat down now. And, I actually had gotten a pat down on my way to Rio de Janeiro when I started my trip in Los Angeles, and that pat down was actually okay. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't invasive. It was done pretty quickly and efficiently, and I was sent on my way. However, the pat down that I received in Dallas that day was completely different. It was totally invasive. I mean, every one of my private areas was touched several times. I was left in tears after that experience because I felt so helpless and so degraded. Never in my life have I been more degraded than I had been that day at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. And as I walked to the airport hallway right after security to meet my husband, who was standing there waiting for me, I just burst into tears. I started crying. I was so emotional because, as an innocent person, I was being treated as if I was guilty of some crime. We live in a country where we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, yet somehow when we step into the TSA's domain, it's the other way around. We're guilty until we're proven innocent. And, that fact just left me infuriated. On top of that, I was physically violated, and again, I'm an innocent human being, and I hear people say all the time, well, if you don't want to get the invasive pat down, you should go through the body scanner then. Well, I'm an extremely healthy person. I have a blog. Actually, the video that I made about my experience in Dallas, which a couple days later went viral throughout the world, I made that video because it was related to my blog. My blog, I write mostly about health and nutrition, and I share healthy recipes and things like that. And, my reasons for not going through the full body scanner at airports are completely health related. I don't want to expose myself to more radiation than I already get on a daily basis by, background radiation. So I want to read this to you guys because I found a very interesting letter from 4 professors from the University of California in San Francisco, and they actually wrote a letter to Dr. John Holdren, who's the assistant to the president for science and technology. And this letter they wrote actually on April 6th of 2010, which was before these backscatter machines were deployed to airports. And the scientists, they bring up some really interesting points that were really eye-opening to me, so I wanted to share some of them with you. They say, we wanted to call your attention to our concerns about the potential serious health risks of the recently adopted whole-body backscatter X-ray airport security scanners. This is an urgent situation, as these X-ray scanners are rapidly being implemented as a primary screening step for all air travel passengers. Now, I want to point out that these scientists are professors in biochemistry and biophysics at the University of California in San Francisco. They are experts in imaging. They are internationally well-known and respected cancer experts. They are X-ray crystallographers, and they're also members of the NAS, which is the National Academy of Sciences. They bring up many interesting points, and one of the things that they say is the X-ray dose from these devices has often been compared in the media to the cosmic ray exposure inherent to airplane travel or that of a chest X-ray. However, this comparison is very misleading. Both the air travel cosmic ray exposure and X-rays and chest X-rays have much higher X-ray energies, and the health consequences are appropriately understood in terms of the whole body volume dose. In contrast, these new airport scanners are largely depositing their energy into the skin and the immediately adjacent tissue. And since this is such a small fraction of body weight or volume, the real dose to the skin is now extremely high. Now that's a really interesting point, because people need to understand the difference in radiation. When you're on an airplane, that radiation is affecting our body as a whole, in its entirety, like it's in its entire volume. When you're going through the backscatter machine at airports, basically the radiation is zapping your skin. So, I mean, it's zapping your cornea, your eyeballs, your entire skin as one organ. And so it's much different than if the radiation was dispersed throughout your body as a whole. So it's a really, that's an interesting distinction that everybody has to make. You know, they go on to say, we would like to put our current concerns into perspective. As long-standing scientists and physicians, we have witnessed critical errors and decisions that have seriously affected the health of thousands of people in the United States. These unfortunate errors were made because of the failure to recognize potential adverse outcomes of decisions made at the federal level. Crises create a sense of urgency that frequently leads to hasty decisions where unintended consequences are not recognized. There has not been sufficient review of the intermediate and long-term effects of radiation exposure associated with airport scanners. There is good reason to believe that these scanners will increase the risk of cancer to children and other vulnerable populations. We are unanimous in believing that the potential health consequences need to be rigorously studied before these scanners are adopted. We urge you to empower an impartial panel of experts to reevaluate the potential health issues we have raised before there are irrevocable long-term consequences to the health of our country. These negative effects may, on balance, far outweigh the potential benefits of increased detection of terrorists. They go on to talk about some red flags and talk about how the radiation can mutate your genes, can alter your cells, and thus causing cancer later on in life. They don't know what the risks are to the fetus of a pregnant woman going through the machine. These studies just have not been done, and so how can they tell us that these machines are safe if the studies are not there? There are no clinical studies. So it's really unfortunate. I think it's important that we all be educated on this matter so that we can make educated decisions in our lives. And if you want to read this letter in its entirety, I urge you to, because I only took certain pieces of it to share with you today. But I did post this entire letter on my website, on susiecastillo.net. I wrote a blog called Why Everyone Should Opt Out of the Airport Body Scanner. So I urge you all to read that and share it with your loved ones, share it with your friends so that everyone's informed. And while you're there on my website, please sign my petition that's on my homepage. This is an opportunity for your voices to be heard, and I want to hear your stories. Please share with me your stories of violation. If you've been violated by the TSA, or a friend's story, whatever the story is, I urge you to share it with me on my petition. And it's just unfair. It's completely unfair what the TSA is doing. They've become an agency that is violating our human rights on a daily basis. And we shouldn't just sit back and allow this to happen. I'm not going to, and I thank you all for your support and for speaking out on this matter. I will say this, I'm not an expert on security, but I am an expert in knowing when I've been violated. And a violation has happened with me. It's happening with many people across the country, and we can't allow it to continue to happen. So thank you so much for your support. God bless you all, and keep up the good work.